Why was she the only one standing at the front of the convoy? Why did the others, hardened men with patches of rank and years of deployment stitched into their uniforms, look toward her in the silence between engine roars, even though she wore none of it? The horizon was a smear of burnt orange, dawn dragging itself over the desert like a tired soldier. Wind carried dust across her boots. She didn't shift her weight, didn't blink as the hum of diesel filled the valley floor. She looked ahead, past where the road bent out of sight, into silence so absolute it rang in her ears. And she remembered her father's words from the farmhouse porch years ago when she still smelled like hay and wood smoke, not gun oil and cordite. Honor doesn't need rank. It doesn't need a stage. It shows up when no one's clapping. That's when it counts. She had been 19 when she joined, not to prove anything to anyone but because of the phone call. Her brother's voice had been the last thing she heard before his patrol disappeared. "Don't worry about me, kid," he had joked. "You'll see me at Christmas." Christmas never came. The military wrote "killed in action" in a report. She never believed it. And now she was here 3 years later, boots planted on the same dirt that had swallowed him. Nobody knew, not her commander, not the intel guys who tossed around maps like dice. Nobody knew why she'd volunteered for this valley. She carried that secret under her shirt, pressed into the chain looped around her neck. Silver bent, his. "Why she out front?" One of the younger soldiers muttered behind her, low but not low enough. "She ain't even got rank." "Shut it," another hissed. She didn't turn. She let it bleed into the air like smoke, unacknowledged. Words like that didn't need answers. She had learned long ago that silence was louder. The briefing had been too thin. Intel gave them a grid square, nothing more. Locals were hostile, the valley terrain was unstable, comms cut off beyond the ridgeline. She should have pushed harder in that tent under the yellow lamps. Should have asked where the holes were. But she didn't, because there was something she hadn't told them, not yet. The convoy rattled forward, tires spitting stones. Inside the troop carrier, the air was tight with nerves. Dust leaked through every seam, coating tongues, catching in throats. A private across from her fumbled with his canteen, trying to hide trembling fingers. His eyes darted, not at her face, but at the rifle across her lap. "You ever been out here before?" she asked quietly. He jolted, surprised she'd spoken. His voice cracked. "No, ma'am, first time." Then he corrected himself, embarrassed. "I mean sorry." "Doesn't matter what you call me," she said, eyes still fixed on the slit of daylight outside. "Just keep your head when it counts." He nodded, swallowing hard. His knee bounced despite himself. She wanted to tell him it was normal, that the tremor in his bones didn't mean he was weak. That courage wasn't about stillness, it was about moving anyway. But she didn't. She learned that men didn't need sermons on courage. They needed someone who didn't shake when the ground did. The truck lurched to a sudden halt. A ripple went through the cabin like an electric shock. Hands gripped rifles. Someone cursed under their breath. She was the first to step down, boots crunching gravel. Heat hit her face, thin and sharp, the kind of heat that made shadows look thicker than they should. The ridgelines on either side loomed like teeth. "Feels wrong," a sergeant whispered. She raised a hand, signaling for stillness. The entire line froze. Even the engines seemed to idle quieter. She scanned the ridges. Sunlight should have burned them clean, but shadows clung stubborn like something hiding. Minutes dragged, stretching taut. Sweat gathered at the nape of her neck, sliding slow under her collar. Then a sound, small but sharp in the silence. A stone tumbling, bouncing off rock. Her eyes snapped upward. Nothing moved, but she felt it, that shift in the air, that unseen weight pressing against skin. "Eyes up," she whispered. The private from before swallowed, his rifle quivering. She reached across and steadied his forearm just for a second. His eyes flicked to hers, wide, panicked. She held his gaze until his shoulders dropped half an inch, until his breathing found a rhythm. Then she let go. The first shot cracked. A sniper's round, slicing air so close it sang in her ear before burying itself in rock. Chaos erupted, shouts, dust, boots scrambling. But her body didn't jerk. She dropped low, calm, slicing through the panic. Her voice carried sharp, steady, cover left, push smoke. The order wasn't barked. It didn't need to be. It landed like an anchor in storm water. The men moved. Gunfire ripped down from the ridges. Echoes slammed against the valley walls, magnified until it felt like fire came from every angle. Dirt kicked up in sprays around them. Corporal Diaz slid next to her, panting, his helmet tilted. "We pinned." She shook her head. "No, they're counting heads, seeing how we scatter." He spat dust, raised his rifle. "Feels like more than counting." She scanned. Her pulse was steady, unnaturally so. Years of drilling fear into silence. But inside she was counting something else. Each shot, each angle, a map of death drawn in sound. Her fingers brushed the chain under her shirt. Her brother's chain. Was it possible? Could the men firing from the ridges be tied to him? No, impossible. And yet. She blinked it away. Focus. Through smoke, through dust, a flicker of cloth caught her eye. A shoulder where rock shouldn't be. Her breath slowed, finger tightened, one clean squeeze. The shot cracked, echo died, a body slumped, rolling down the slope. The valley hesitated, just for a second. Around her, men steadied, because when she fired it meant control. But her own chest stuttered, because as the body tumbled she saw it, something wrong. A patch on the dead man's shoulder, faded, torn, but unmistakable. Not enemy issue, allied. Her stomach dropped. She didn't say it, not yet. She only exhaled into the gun smoke, tasting iron, tasting dust, holding the revelation tight in her chest. Another burst of fire rained down. Diaz shouted orders. Men scrambled for cover, but her mind was no longer only on the fight. The patch burned in her memory, bright as a flare. What was a friendly insignia doing here, stitched to the arm of a man shooting at them? The answer clawed at her, but she pushed it down. Now wasn't the time. She steadied her rifle, her voice cutting again through the storm. "Push right, clear the ridge, keep moving." They moved, carrying her certainty as if it were command. Because though she wore no rank of command already, on this dust-choked field, her silence, her steadiness, her unseen grief was writing the meaning of honor. And none of them knew the deeper truth. That this fight wasn't only theirs, it was hers, personal, buried in the chain against her skin. A secret that would demand blood before it let go. How many men knew the taste of betrayal before they tasted blood? The question slid through her mind as the gunfire echoed in broken waves. The body she had dropped still rested against the rocks 20 meters ahead, the patch on its shoulder a whisper only she had seen. Allied. Torn, weathered, but allied. She hadn't told the others. Not yet. "Smoke out, push right flank." Diaz's voice cracked through the chaos, but his eyes flicked to her, waiting, always waiting for her to nod before he believed his own words. She scanned the ridge, searching for movement, for muzzle flash. Her men scrambled forward under the veil of gray smoke, boots slipping on loose shale, lungs heaving through filtered masks. The air thickened with burned powder and grit. The young private, the one who had been shaking earlier, tripped, his rifle clattering against stone. A shot pinged inches from him and he froze. She didn't think, she moved. Sliding low, she grabbed his collar, yanked him behind a slab of rock. His breath rasped, eyes wide with the white-ringed panic of someone tasting death too early. "Breathe," she said, her voice calm, even like she had all the time in the world. "Find your breath. Don't let them take it from you." His lips trembled, but air rushed in, then out, then steadier. A beat later he nodded, tiny, barely, but he nodded. Gunfire hammered again from above. She angled her rifle, watching dust puffs mark where rounds slammed into ground. They weren't shooting blind. No. Whoever was up there knew what they were doing, angles, range, suppressing fire. Not locals with old rusted rifles. These were trained, disciplined. Another wrong note in a song that should have been predictable. Diaz slid beside her, sweat streaking his face. We can't hold here. They've got elevation. She kept her scope trained, scanning for the next flicker. Her voice was soft but firm. Then we take it. Diaz shook his head, incredulous. You want to climb into fire. They're not expecting it. They expect us to hide and wait. We climb, we break that rhythm. A pause, his jaw tightened. Then, all right. Orders rippled. The men began moving, crawling, then climbing under the choking veil of smoke. Every grip on stone was slick with sweat. Every breath scraped dry throats. Halfway up, another burst. A round tore into the rock near her ear, fragments slicing her cheek. She didn't flinch. Pain bloomed hot, sharp, then faded into background noise. She had learned to let pain become part of the landscape. She raised her rifle, sighted fast, fired. The muzzle flash died. Silence swallowed that corner of the ridge. The climb felt endless. Muscles screamed, lungs burned. But inch by inch they dragged themselves higher until fingers hooked the lip of the ridge. She pulled herself over first, boots on gravel, rifle raised. And there, 5 meters away, 2 figures, scrambling to reposition, weapons sleek, modern. Too modern. Her chest clenched. These weren't ragtag insurgents. Their gear was clean, their movements drilled. One shouted something in clipped English, not fluent but practiced. She fired once, then twice. One went down, the other staggered, retreating deeper into the rocks. The rest of her men crested the ridge, shots rang, then quiet. The silence after gunfire was never peace. It was the sound of ghosts finding their seats. Diaz approached, kicking a rifle away from the fallen man's hand. He crouched, flipped the body, his brow furrowed. This doesn't make sense. It was the patch. Not the same unit as before. Different, but still allied, still wrong. One soldier whispered, "What the hell going on? Why are we shooting our own?" No one answered. They all turned, almost as one, toward her. Her pulse pounded. She wanted to speak, to tell them what she suspected, what she feared. But the words stuck in her throat. Because what if she was wrong? What if this was something else? Stolen gear, false flags, mercs dressed in uniforms that didn't belong. If she spoke now, she'd plant doubt, fear, division. And division killed faster than bullets. So she stayed silent. She turned instead, eyes scanning the horizon beyond the ridge. And there, far off, the shimmer of movement, a dust trail, vehicles. Her voice broke the quiet. We need to move now. No one questioned, not yet. They descended the opposite slope, every bootstep cautious, shoulders heavy with questions. The private stayed close behind her, breathing hard but steady now. When they reached the valley floor again, Diaz caught her arm, voice low. You saw it, didn't you? That patch. Her eyes met his, steady, guarded, not now. He frowned, searching her face, then nodded reluctantly. He didn't press. The squad pushed on, deeper into the valley. The sun climbed higher, baking stone, baking skin. Sweat turned uniforms into second skins. Dust clung to teeth. Hours stretched, no more fire came, only silence. Too much silence. Finally, when the men sagged under the weight of it, she called a halt. They dropped packs, collapsed against stones, sucking water from canteens like lifelines. The private, the young one, sat apart, knees pulled up, head down. His lips moved, whispering something she couldn't hear. A prayer maybe, or a name. She walked to him, crouched low. Who are you talking to? His eyes lifted, startled, then soft. My sister back home. She felt her chest pull tight. She write you? She asked. He shook his head. No, she doesn't know I'm here. I didn't tell her, didn't want her worrying. He hesitated. But when it's quiet, I still talk like she's listening. Something in her throat thickened. She nodded slowly. Keep talking, even when you think no one's listening. Sometimes that's what keeps you moving. He studied her a moment, then whispered, "You talk to anyone." She paused, the chain under her shirt pressed against her chest like a stone. She exhaled. "Sometimes." He nodded, didn't press. That was enough. She stood, scanning the valley again. The silence wasn't empty. It was waiting. She felt it in her bones. And beneath it all, the image of that patch burned hotter. She remembered her brother's last message, 3 years ago, before he vanished into this same valley. "Don't worry about me, kid. You'll see me at Christmas." The official report had been neat, clinical, killed in action. No body recovered. She hadn't believed it, she still didn't. And now, these men on the ridge wearing Allied patches fighting like ghosts, was it possible? Could he be tied to this? Her heart wanted to believe. Her head told her it would break her. She clenched her fists, breath deep, and turned back to her men. Because whatever haunted this valley, whatever secrets bled through its silence, she couldn't let them see her unravel. Honor wasn't in answers, not yet. It was in standing steady when everyone else leaned. And though she wore no rank, already, they looked at her as if she carried the weight of command. The weight she hadn't asked for. The weight she couldn't put down. What happens to silence when it becomes too heavy to bear? The valley answered with echoes, not of gunfire this time, but of footsteps dragging across loose gravel, gear clinking in the dry heat. Her squad moved like shadows under the unforgiving sun. Every man's face was tight with fatigue, lips cracked, eyes squinting against the glare. But still, they followed. She kept her place at the front, the chain under her shirt pressing against skin, a reminder sharp as glass. Each step farther into this valley wasn't just mission distance. It was distance into memory, distance into questions she wasn't ready to speak aloud. Diaz trudged beside her, sweat streaking mud across his cheek. "We can't keep this pace. Boys are burning out." She didn't turn. Her eyes swept the ridges, every crevice, every dark pocket where an enemy might wait. "We don't stop here. Not yet." Diaz exhaled through his teeth. "Not saying you're wrong, just saying." He gestured toward the squad strung out behind them. A private limped, dragging a sore knee. Another kept tugging at his water canteen as if more would magically appear inside. She knew, she saw it all. She always saw it. But stopping meant giving the silence room to swell, and she wasn't sure the silence wouldn't swallow them whole. Still, she caught the look in Diaz's eyes. He wasn't just a soldier, he was a man protecting his men. And part of leadership, real leadership, was knowing when strength meant pausing. She raised her fist. The squad halted gratefully, some collapsing against rocks, others dropping flat to the ground like the earth itself could cool them. A sigh of relief rippled through the group. For a moment, the valley felt almost still. Almost. She crouched near a boulder, scanning. The air was wrong again. Quiet, yes, but not the kind of quiet that belonged. This was watching quiet, waiting quiet. She pulled her canteen, tipped a sip into her mouth. The water was warm, metallic, but it steadied her throat. "All right, 5 minutes," Diaz announced, lowering himself onto a flat stone. He rubbed the back of his neck, muttering, "Feels like this whole place is breathing down my damn collar." One of the younger soldiers, Corporal Reeves, chimed in, his voice cracking under nerves. "Feels cursed if you ask me. Like the locals say, Ghost Valley." The private, the one she'd pulled out of fire earlier, looked up, brow furrowed. "Ghost Valley." Reeves smirked weakly. "What nobody told you. They say this place swallows men. Patrols go in, never come out. Sometimes they say they hear their names whispered in the wind at night." The private paled, his hand tightening around his rifle. Diaz shot Reeves a sharp look. "Shut your damn mouth." But she said nothing. She let the words hang, because part of her wondered if there was truth stitched inside the myth. Not literal ghosts, but men left behind. Men who'd gone dark. Men who wore the wrong patches on the wrong side of the fight. Her brother's face flickered behind her eyes. His grin. The way he used to push her shoulder when he wanted her to laugh. She clenched her jaw until the image faded. She rose, walking the perimeter, every sense straining. That was when she saw it. A glint, not far off, maybe 100 yards, half buried in dust near a cluster of rocks. She signaled Diaz, then moved carefully, rifle raised. Each step pressed quiet, deliberate. The squad watched, tension prickling the air. She crouched near the object, brushed dust away. Dog tags. Her stomach dropped. She picked them up slowly, the chain cooled despite the sun. The letters were faint, worn, but still legible. Diaz leaned over her shoulder, whispering, "Those are ours." Her throat tightened. She turned the tag in her fingers. The name wasn't her brother. Relief came sharp, fast, then guilt just as fast for feeling it. But still, an Allied soldier's tags left here, abandoned. The private spoke up, voice thin. What does that mean?" No one answered. Her eyes stayed locked on the letters, her heart hammering. Was this just another piece of wreckage scattered across years of war? Or was it a breadcrumb in the trail she had been chasing since the report of her brother's disappearance? She closed her fist around the tags, tucked them into her vest pocket without a word. Because silence still carried more weight than guesses. Diaz studied her face. He wanted to ask. She saw it in his eyes, but he didn't. Maybe he already knew better. They moved again. As the sun bent west, shadows stretched long across the valley floor. Their path narrowed between sheer cliffs. The air cooled slightly, but tension only sharpened. Reeves muttered again, too loud in the quiet. "This is a choke point. We're dead meat if they hit us here." "Keep moving," she said, voice flat, steady. Boots scraped stone, breath rasped. Halfway through the pass it came. The crack of rifles, echoes exploding in the narrow canyon. Bullets sparked off rock, chipping shards that sliced skin. The men dove for cover, pressed against stone walls. The air filled with grit, smoke, shouting. She slid to the ground, shoulder against rock, heart thundering not from fear but from calculation. "Return fire, keep your heads low," Diaz bellowed. She peeked the edge, caught a glimpse of movement high on the cliff. Not one, several. Her jaw tight. This wasn't random. This was precision, an ambush laid with patience. And then she saw him. For a fraction of a second, through dust, through chaos, a silhouette, broad shoulders, familiar stance, a way of holding a rifle that stabbed memory like a knife. Her breath caught, her vision tunneled. It couldn't be. But her gut whispered otherwise. The figure ducked back behind rock before she could see his face. She blinked hard, forcing herself steady. Was it him, or just her mind carving shapes into shadows she desperately wanted to see? Diaz shouted something she barely registered. Gunfire raged, men scrambled. The private shouted for more ammo. Reeves cursed as he reloaded. But her chest was locked on that glimpse, that impossible glimpse. Her brother. Was it him? The thought pressed so hard against her ribs she thought it might break her. She shoved it down, forced her rifle up, sighting the next muzzle flash. Fired. Another body fell from the cliffs, rolling lifeless into the dust. The firefight dragged, minutes stretching into lifetimes. Finally, silence came again, jagged and raw. Breathing filled the canyon, heavy, shaken. Bodies littered the rocks above. Some enemy, some wearing gear too close to theirs, too close. She didn't speak, didn't trust her voice. Her men looked to her again, eyes wide, waiting. And in that moment, she realized something she hadn't admitted to herself until now. They weren't just following orders, they were following her. Her silence, her steadiness, her strength. Whether she wanted it or not, she carried command. Even without rank. Especially without rank. She exhaled, tasting dust, tasting grief. Because if the glimpse she'd seen was real, if the man in the shadows was her brother, then this mission wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about redemption. and finding the truth in a valley that never gave it up freely. She could hear it before she could see it. The faint static crackle in her headset, the clipped tone of an operator whose voice never wavered no matter what burned on the other end. Echo 3, you're approaching grid 5, eyes open. Maya pressed herself lower against the dirt. The night air carried the smell of dry earth mixed with faint smoke from some unseen fire. She tightened her grip on the rifle, its cold steel grounding her in the silence. Her breath was calm, deliberate, but inside, her pulse drummed. She whispered back, "Copy grid 5." The terrain ahead was jagged, a half-collapsed wall of stone marking the edge of an old village. What struck her wasn't what she could see, but what she couldn't. Too quiet. No footsteps. No voices. Just an emptiness that made her skin prickle. She signaled the two men with her, Ramirez and Collins. Just a hand gesture, palm pressed down. Stay low, move slow. Ramirez, always restless, muttered under his breath, "Feels wrong." She didn't answer, she couldn't, not yet. The silence wasn't absence, it was something else. Waiting. And then, as if the night decided to breathe again, a dog barked in the distance. One sharp, hollow echo, then another. Maya's chest tightened. The villagers didn't keep dogs here anymore. She remembered that from the briefing, which meant the bark was a signal. "Cover," she hissed, dropping against the wall. Seconds later, the crack of a rifle split the night. Stone exploded inches from Ramirez's shoulder. Collins cursed, ducking low, scrambling against the dirt. Ambush. It happened in a rush of sound, bullets carving the air, snapping into the rocks, dust clouds lifting like ghostly veils. Maya kept her breath steady, counting the rhythm, locating the angles. 3 shooters, maybe 4, elevated positions. Ramirez was shouting, adrenaline pouring through every word. Collins' hands shook as he tried to load his weapon. Maya's mind went silent. That stillness she always felt when chaos erupted, it wasn't courage, it was survival. She spotted the faint glint of scope glass on a rooftop, no wider than the edge of a coin. Without hesitation, she shifted, found her breath, squeezed. Her shot shattered the glass, sending sparks and shadow toppling back. One down. But there was no victory in it, just necessity. Ramirez laughed sharply, relief bleeding into his tone. "Damn, you're a ghost, Maya." She didn't respond. Her eyes scanned again, tracing movement. Shadows shifted in the corner of her scope, another shooter, then another. Why so many? Why here? Something in her gut turned cold. This wasn't random, they were expected. A round whined past her ear, close enough to burn the air. She pressed lower, pulse steady, though her jaw clenched with each passing second. Then the sound she wasn't ready for, the muffled cry of a child. Collins froze, his rifle halfway lifted. "Tell me I didn't hear that." Maya's stomach sank. The voice was real, a child crying not far. Ramirez shook his head hard. "It's bait, don't buy it." But Maya knew that sound. She knew the weight of it, the way it cut sharper than bullets. She saw flashes of her brother in it, those nights in the desert when his voice had called for her, small and frightened, before she could ever be the one to protect him. Her throat tightened. For a moment, the battlefield blurred with memory. Ramirez nudged her shoulder. "Orders, Maya, what do we do?" She blinked, forced the fog out of her mind. She couldn't break, not here, not now. But the child's cries wove through the night, threading doubt into every movement. They advanced slowly, one wall to the next. Maya's scope swept across broken windows, shadows shifting. She kept looking for the source of the sound, but every angle felt wrong. Another shot cracked. Collins grunted, collapsing against the dirt. The bullet had torn into his side. Blood pooled dark beneath his fingers. "Shit, shit, shit." Ramirez dropped beside him, pressing a hand down hard. Collins' eyes locked on Maya, wide, terrified. "Don't leave me." She crouched low, pressing her hand over his, voice calm though her chest tightened. "You're not going anywhere. Stay with me." Her earpiece buzzed, Command's voice calm, detached. Echo 3, what's your status? Maya swallowed hard. She wanted to say they were fine, but she couldn't. We're pinned, one man down. A pause, then, proceed to objective. Extraction point in 30. Her jaw clenched. She glanced at Collins, pale, gasping hands shaking against his wound. Extraction in 30 minutes. He didn't have 30 minutes. Ramirez looked at her, eyes blazing. They just wrote him off. We're not leaving him. Maya's chest burned with the weight of the choice. Orders pressed against her like iron. Mission first. Always mission first. But Collins wasn't just a name on a roster. He was human. He was hers. The child's cries rang again, thinner this time, almost desperate. Maya closed her eyes for just a second. The battlefield roared and whispered all at once. She made her decision. Ramirez, get him stable. Tourniquet pressure, keep him conscious. Ramirez blinked, and you. She pulled her rifle close, sliding along the wall, eyes narrowing toward the sound in the distance. I'm going to find the child, or whoever's using that voice. Her words hung heavy. Ramirez didn't argue. He just nodded, pressing hard against Collins' wound, muttering curses and prayers all at once. Maya moved alone. Every step pressed into the dirt like a secret she couldn't take back. The cries led her toward a collapsed building, its doorway hanging open like a mouth of shadows. Her heart thudded, not from fear but from something deeper, a knowing. She raised her weapon, stepped inside. The air was heavy, musty. Broken beams, crumbled stone. Her boots crunched against shattered glass. Then she saw it. A small boy no older than 8 huddled in the corner. His face streaked with dirt, eyes wide with terror. He wasn't bait, he was real. Her chest cracked open at the sight. The mission, the orders, the blood waiting outside, and now this boy. But something was wrong. Because just as she took one step closer, she felt the faintest shift in air, a whisper of movement above. She looked up and saw the barrel of a rifle pointed down. The child's eyes widened, not at her but at what hovered above. Maya's body moved before thought did. The crack of her shot shattered the silence. Dust rained down. A body fell heavy into the dirt beside her. The boy screamed, covering his ears. Maya lowered her rifle, breath sharp, heart pounding. She crouched slowly, her voice softer now, trembling. It's okay, you're safe now. But even as she whispered, she knew safety was fragile, temporary. Outside, Collins was bleeding. Ramirez was holding him together by threads, and the night still carried rifles in its shadows. Maya extended her hand to the boy. He hesitated, then clutched it, small fingers gripping tight. And in that fragile connection, in that terrified grip, she felt the weight of every order, every sacrifice, every lie they told themselves about honor. Because sometimes, honor wasn't written in ranks. It was holding on when everything else told you to let go. The boy's hand was trembling in hers. So small, so fragile. Yet in that grip, Maya felt the weight of a choice that no commander could make for her. She whispered steady, almost like a promise to herself, "You're not alone." But outside, the night still seethed with danger. Gunfire echoed faintly from the other side of the village, sharp bursts that cut through the silence like lightning. Somewhere out there, unseen rifles still hunted, and she had 2 men waiting, one bleeding out, the other trying to keep him alive with nothing but grit and his bare hands. The boy's wide eyes followed hers, as if reading her hesitation. His voice was thin, cracked. They said if I cried, someone would come. Maya's chest tightened. She brushed the dust from his cheek, keeping her voice calm. Who said that? The boy shook his head quickly, eyes darting toward the doorway. Fear. He knew better than to speak. Her instincts screamed. This wasn't coincidence. The enemy hadn't just lured them into a kill zone, they had planted a child in it. Maya rose, pulling him gently but firmly to his feet. Stay close, don't let go. He nodded, though his knees shook with each step. As they edged back toward the doorway, she felt it, that shift in air, that silence just before a storm. She dropped low, dragging the boy with her just as a round shredded through the wall behind them. Stone splinters rained down. "Move," she hissed. They sprinted out, boots thudding against dirt. Gunfire roared again, chasing them. Maya kept her body between the boy and the muzzle flashes sparking from the rooftops. Her rifle barked back, sharp and precise. One shadow fell, another ducked. Then she saw Ramirez, crouched over Collins in the open courtyard, one hand pressing hard on the wound, the other firing wild bursts to keep heads down. "Maya," his shout was relief and rage all at once. "You're insane." She didn't answer. No time. She slid behind cover, pulling the boy tight against her chest. Collins was pale, drenched in sweat, his lips barely moving. She could see the tremor in his fingers, the kind that said his body was slipping away. Ramirez met her eyes, frantic. "He's not going to make it." Her jaw clenched. She wouldn't accept it, not yet. She pressed her earpiece, her voice cutting through the static. "Command, Echo 3. We have a civilian child recovered. One operator critically wounded. We need immediate evac. Now." The reply came cold, measured. "Negative. Extraction remains on schedule. 30 mics." She slammed her fist against the wall, fury tightening her chest. "He doesn't have 30 minutes." But the line went silent. Command was done listening. Ramirez's voice cracked. "What now, Maya? We stay, he dies. We move, we're dragging a corpse. You tell me, what the hell do we do?" She looked at the boy, at Collins, at Ramirez, whose eyes burned with anger and desperation, and for the first time in a long time she felt her strength waver. She wanted to scream. She wanted to tear the sky open and force the world to choose differently, but all she had was her voice, her will. Her hand rested gently on Collins' arm. "Stay awake, soldier, you hear me, you stay awake." His eyes fluttered, barely focusing. "Maya, leave me, don't." "No," her voice broke, just one word, sharp, fierce, aching. "We don't leave our own." She tore strips from her sleeve, pressing them tight over his wound, forcing herself to believe it mattered, forcing him to believe. The boy clung to her side, silent tears streaking down his face. Ramirez kept firing short bursts, keeping the enemy's heads low, but their ammo was thinning. Maya could hear it, the metallic snap of magazines running dry. The night pressed heavier. They were running out of time. Then she remembered something. Not orders, not tactics, but her brother's voice, a memory from years ago. "Sometimes, Maya," he had whispered when they were kids, "strength isn't about fighting harder. It's about holding on when no one else will." Her throat tightened. That was it. That was all they could do, hold on. She leaned into Ramirez, her voice steady. "We move. We find high ground, somewhere defensible. We keep him alive until they have no choice but to pull us out." Ramirez stared at her, anger simmering into something else. Respect, or maybe resignation. He nodded once. "Lead the way." Maya slung Collins' arm over her shoulders, the boy gripping her belt like his life depended on it. Together, the three of them staggered through broken streets, gunfire chasing them like wolves at their heels. Every step was agony. Collins groaned with each jolt, his weight dragging heavy. Ramirez fired when he could, reloading with frantic hands. They found an old watchtower at the edge of the village, half collapsed but still standing tall enough to give sightlines. Maya kicked the door open, her voice sharp. "Inside, go." They stumbled up the stairs, each creak threatening to betray them. The boy clutched her arm, refusing to let go even for a moment. At the top, moonlight spilled through shattered stone. Maya laid Collins down gently, her hands slick with his blood. She pressed hard against the wound, whispering steady words like a prayer. "You're not done, you hear me? You're not done." His breathing hitched shallow, but he was still there, still fighting. Ramirez sat up by the window, rifle aimed into the dark. His voice was grim. They'll come for us. Maya nodded, sweat streaking her dirt-covered face. Then we make them pay for every step. She looked at the boy who sat curled against the wall, knees pulled to his chest. His eyes met hers, fearful yet searching. And in that gaze, she felt the truth settle heavy inside her. This wasn't about winning. It wasn't about orders or missions or glory. It was about holding a line that no one else would, about making a choice when command turned their back. She brushed her hand over Colin's forehead, her voice barely more than a whisper. We hold together. The night outside stirred with movement, shadows shifting, rifles loading, boots crunching on dirt. The storm was coming. But inside that crumbling tower, Maya felt something steadier than fear. Not hope, not yet. Something else. The quiet strength of knowing that even without rank, without recognition, she had chosen what honor meant. And that choice would define everything that came next. The first sound was not the gunfire. It was the crunch of boots in the dirt below, faint but steady, a rhythm too precise to be chance. Ramirez lifted a finger to his lips, eyes narrowing as he peered through the broken slats of the tower window. They're here. His whisper was taut, stretched thin like wire about to snap. Maya didn't answer. She felt it before she saw them, the shadows gliding between walls, rifles glinting under pale moonlight, more than she'd expected. Too many. Colin stirred, his voice barely a rasp. Go, leave me. Maya pressed her hand firm against his chest, silencing him. Not happening. Her tone left no room for argument. But inside, doubt gnawed at her. His skin was clammy, his breath shallow. She had minutes, maybe less, before his body gave out. And still, the enemy kept closing in. The boy whimpered, pressing himself deeper into the corner. His small hands clutched the fabric of her sleeve, refusing to let go. Maya leaned close, her voice soft despite the storm around them. Stay down. No matter what happens, you stay down. Understand? He nodded, eyes wide with fear and trust all tangled together. Then silence, the kind that hums in your ears when everything else has stopped. And a single voice called out from below. You are surrounded. Give us the child. Walk away and you live. The words cut through the night, sharp and sure. No hesitation, no anger, just a deal. Ramirez swore under his breath. They know. Maya's chest tightened. She glanced at the boy, who shook his head violently, tears spilling down his cheeks. His lips trembled, but no sound came. The demand wasn't just tactical, it was personal. Maya crouched lower, whispering to Ramirez, We don't give them anything. He looked at her, searching, torn. You know what this means, right? They'll burn this tower to the ground if they have to. Her jaw tightened. Then we make it cost them. Before Ramirez could reply, the first shot rang out, sharp, explosive. A bullet splintered the stone inches from his head. He ducked, cursing. Then the storm broke. Gunfire erupted from all sides, rattling the tower like thunder. Dust rained from the ceiling, choking the air. Maya pressed her shoulder into the wall, lining her scope on the nearest muzzle flash. She exhaled once, steady, then fired. A shadow crumpled. She shifted, fired again. Another fell. But for every one she dropped, two more replaced them. The night was alive with fire. Ramirez yelled over the chaos. Ammo's low. She already knew. Every shot was precious now, every trigger pull weighed like gold. Her hands moved with practiced rhythm, load, chamber, fire. But deep down she felt it, the inevitability pressing closer with each passing second. Collins groaned, his voice thin. Don't waste it on me. Shut up, Ramirez snapped, his voice cracking with something deeper than anger. You're not dying here. Maya's chest clenched. The way Ramirez said it, it wasn't just defiance. It was a plea. The boy buried his face against her arm, flinching at every crack of gunfire. She wrapped an arm around him, keeping her body between him and the storm. Her voice was low, steady, meant more for herself than for him. We hold. We don't break. But the truth was, the tower was breaking. Stone cracked with each impact. The walls trembled under the relentless barrage. Ramirez's rifle clicked empty. He swore, scrambling for another magazine. 2 left. Maya glanced at her pouch. 1, that was all she had. The weight of it hit her, the math, the time. And then something shifted. The gunfire slowed, then stopped altogether. The night went quiet except for the ringing in her ears. Ramirez frowned. Why'd they stop? Maya's gut went cold. She knew why. A deep thud echoed from outside, then another, heavy, mechanical. Her breath caught, not rifles, not boots, something worse. Mortars, she whispered. The boy's grip tightened on her sleeve. Ramirez's face drained of color. They'll level us. Collins coughed weakly, blood bubbling at his lips. His voice cracked in a whisper. Go, just go. Maya pressed her forehead to the stone, eyes closing for one sharp second. Every choice she'd made had led to this, defying orders, carrying the boy, refusing to leave Collins. And now the cost was coming. But when she opened her eyes, there was no fear, just clarity. She crawled to Collins' side, her voice firm, steady. You're not dying here, not like this. I'll carry you if I have to. Then she turned to Ramirez, who was watching her like a man caught between hope and despair. When that first round hits, we move, fast, low, toward the ridge. If we stay, we're done. Ramirez nodded slowly. And the boy? Her gaze hardened. He comes with us. The silence after her words was heavy. Ramirez didn't argue. He just chambered his last rounds and braced himself. Outside, the night shifted again. A whistling sound cut through the air, sharp, rising, inevitable. The first mortar. Maya grabbed the boy, her arm wrapping around his small frame. With her other, she hooked Collins under the shoulders, Ramirez lifting from the other side. Together, they dragged him toward the stairwell. The world erupted. The mortar slammed into the ground outside, shaking the tower to its bones. Stone split, dust cascaded, beams cracked. The boy screamed, clinging tighter to her chest. Move, Maya shouted. They stumbled down the stairs, each step a thunderclap beneath their boots. Another whistle, another explosion. The tower groaned like a dying beast. They burst into the open air just as the top of the structure collapsed behind them, stone and fire crashing in a deafening roar. The boy covered his ears, crying. Collins sagged between them, barely conscious. Ramirez cursed, his voice breaking. But Maya didn't stop. She dragged them forward, every muscle screaming, every breath tearing at her lungs. The ridge loomed ahead, dark against the pale horizon, their only chance. Behind them, the enemy shouted, boots pounding against dirt. The chase had begun. Maya didn't look back. She couldn't, not yet. Her only focus was forward, one step, then another. Because honor wasn't standing tall when it was easy. It was carrying the weight of others when the ground itself tried to swallow you whole. And tonight, that weight was hers alone. The ridge was farther than it looked. Every step was a war against the earth itself, Maya's boots dragging through dust as she hauled Collins' weight against her shoulder. Ramirez grunted beside her, his own strength fatting, but neither let go. The boy clung to her waist, stumbling to keep pace, his breath ragged with fear. Behind them, the village burned. The tower lay in ruins, fire licking the night sky, casting jagged shadows across the ground. And from those shadows, voices rose, shouts in a language the boy flinched at, rifles clattering, boots pounding. The hunters were coming. Ramirez spat, sweat streaking down his dirt-caked face. We're not gonna outrun them like this. Maya didn't answer, couldn't, her lungs burned, her shoulders screamed. But her grip on Collins never loosened. His head sagged against her chest, lips pale, breath shallow. She whispered through clenched teeth, as if her voice alone could hold him here. Stay with me, just a little longer. Collins stirred faintly, his voice barely a rasp. Should have left me. Her throat tightened. She shook her head fiercely, not trusting her voice. Leaving him would have been easier, but easy wasn't honor. Ramirez glanced back, rifle half raised. They're closing. His tone was flat, stripped of anything but truth. The boy whimpered, clutching her tighter. Maya bent her head close, her voice breaking through her own exhaustion. Listen to me. Whatever happens, you keep moving, you don't stop. Understand? His eyes met hers, wide, wet, searching. He nodded, though his body shook with terror. A sharp crack split the air, gunfire. Dirt spat up near her feet. Another burst whined past Ramirez's arm. The chase wasn't distant anymore. It was here. Ramirez cursed, firing back blindly over his shoulder. 2 mags left. Maya scanned the dark ridge ahead. Stone jutted upward, forming a jagged cut in the earth. Shelter. A chance. There, she shouted, her voice carrying over the chaos. The rocks go. They staggered toward it, Collins dragging heavier with every step. The boy tripped, his knees scraping against stone, but Maya yanked him up without slowing. Another round hissed past, close enough she could feel the heat. They dove behind the outcrop, hearts hammering. Ramirez pressed his back against the stone, chest heaving, rifle clutched tight. The boy collapsed into Maya's lap, sobbing silently. Collins lay limp, his breath shallow, blood dark against his uniform. Ramirez's eyes darted to her. We're cornered, they'll pin us here. Maya steadied her breath, forcing calm into her tone. Then we make it count. She pulled her last magazine free, slamming it into place. The metallic click echoed louder than any explosion. Ramirez gave a broken laugh, shaking his head. Hell of a way to go. Not yet, she whispered. They waited. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then the shadows appeared, figures moving low, rifles raised, fanning out in the night, predators circling prey. Maya's pulse slowed. Her world narrowed to the edge of her scope, the weight of the trigger under her finger. She fired. One fell. Ramirez followed, his shot dropping another. The air erupted again, bullets tearing into stone, shards slicing skin. The boy screamed, covering his ears, burying his face against her side. Collins stirred weakly, his voice a ghost. Don't let them. She gritted her teeth, firing again. Dust filled her lungs, blood stung her eyes. The night became rhythm, breathe, aim, squeeze, move. But even as she fought, she knew they couldn't hold forever. Her mind spun, calculations, angles, exits. Nothing fit, nothing gave them life. Then faint, distant, a sound she almost didn't believe. Rotors. Her heart lurched, a helicopter extraction. Ramirez heard it too. His eyes went wide, disbelief cracking into something like hope. They came. Maya's chest surged with relief, but she didn't let it show. Not yet. Not until she saw it with her own eyes. The enemy heard it too. Their fire grew frantic, desperate. They wanted the kill before salvation arrived. Maya pressed the boy tighter against her side, shouting over the chaos. It's almost over, hold on. Ramirez's rifle clicked empty. He drew his sidearm, firing until even that ran dry. He looked at her, teeth clenched. That's it, I'm dry. Maya met his gaze, the weight of finality between them. She pressed her last round into the chamber, breath steady. Then it's on me. She leaned out, scope locking onto the nearest shadow. She exhaled, fired. Another down. She shifted, another. The last round left the chamber like a prayer. Click empty. She lowered the rifle, her chest rising and falling in the silence that followed. The rotors grew louder now, a storm breaking over the ridge. A spotlight tore across the dark, blinding, searing. Shouts rose, chaos unraveling. The helicopter descended, blades thrashing the night, dust spiraling like ghosts. Ropes dropped. Silhouettes slid down, reinforcements, rifles barking. The enemy scattered under the sudden onslaught, shadows fleeing into the burning village. Maya sank back against the rock, the boy still clutched tight, Collins pale and gasping against her arm. Ramirez exhaled a ragged laugh, relief breaking into his voice. They were alive. But Maya couldn't celebrate. Not yet. Her eyes stayed on Collins, whose breathing faltered with each passing second. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice cracking. "We're not done, not yet." Hands reached for them, rescuers shouting, pulling Collins onto a stretcher, guiding Ramirez and the boy toward the rope. Maya lingered a moment longer, staring at the fire-lit village below, her heart heavy. Honor wasn't the mission. Honor wasn't the orders. Honor was this, holding when no one else could. She turned, lifted the boy into her arms, and stepped toward the ropes. And for the first time that night, she allowed herself to believe maybe they'd made it. The medevac bay stank of blood, gunpowder, and hydraulic fluid. The thrum of the rotors above pressed into Maya's skull, a relentless drumbeat that matched the racing of her heart. She sat rigid on the bench seat, one hand locked around the boy's small shoulder, the other still gripping Collins' limp wrist as if her touch alone could anchor him to life. Medics swarmed him, cutting open his vest, pressing gauze into the gaping wound, shouting codes Maya half-registered but didn't dare let herself interpret. Collins' face was gray, sweat beading along his hairline, his breath shallow, fragile, fighting the pull of silence. Ramirez sat opposite, hunched forward, his eyes hollow, staring at nothing. Dirt and blood crusted his jaw. His rifle still hung across his chest, useless now, but his hand never left it. Soldiers learn not to unclench after nights like this. The boy trembled against her, his small hands buried in the folds of her sleeve. His eyes stayed on Collins, wide and wet, as though he'd already seen too much of death and didn't know what it meant to watch it again. Maya bent her head close, her voice low, steady despite the quiver under it. "You're safe now, you hear me? They can't touch you here." The boy didn't answer, but he leaned closer into her side, and that was enough. The helicopter banked, tilting them toward the horizon. Through the open door, Maya saw the burning village shrinking beneath them, the fire a glowing wound in the earth. Smoke rose like a funeral pyre, carrying with it the faces of those who hadn't made it out. Her jaw tightened. She wanted to hate the place, but all she could feel was the weight of every silence she'd ever carried, silences like this one, where fire ate the names of people who deserved more than to vanish. A medic's voice broke her trance. "He's crashing, pressure's dropping, hold him." Maya's chest caved. She pushed forward, her hand tightening around Collins' cold fingers. His eyelids fluttered weakly, lips parting as if to form words, but no sound came. She leaned in, her voice a whisper meant only for him. "You're not done, you hear me, Collins, not like this, not tonight." For a heartbeat his eyes found hers, clouded, dim, but there. His lips moved faintly, shaping something she couldn't quite hear. Maybe her name, maybe just the word stay. Then the medic shoved her back, defibrillator pads pressing against his chest. Clear. Shock tore through his body. The monitor flatlined. Maya's stomach turned to stone. The boy buried his face in her lap, sobbing soundlessly. Ramirez's eyes finally lifted, sharp, desperate, waiting for the line to shift. For endless seconds it didn't. Then beep. A weak blip, another. The medic exhaled, shouting to the others. "We've got him. Hold the line, he's still with us." Maya's breath broke out in a rush she hadn't realized she was holding. She pressed her forehead against Collins' arm, her shoulders trembling for the first time all night. Not victory, not yet, but not loss either. The helicopter roared onward, the base lights glowing faint in the distance, like stars across the desert. Hours later, under the cold wash of fluorescent hospital lights, Maya sat alone in the waiting bay. Her rifle leaned against the wall. Her hands were wrapped in gauze, though she couldn't remember when they'd been bandaged. The boy slept curled against her side, his small chest rising and falling steady now, finally free from fear. Ramirez paced the far end of the room, his exhaustion hidden behind restless motion, as if still fighting ghosts only he could see. A doctor emerged, removing his mask, His eyes searched the room, settling on her. Sergeant Collins made it through surgery. He's stable for now. He'll need time, but he's alive. Alive. The word fell into her chest like a stone into water, ripples breaking through the silence she'd carried for years. She closed her eyes, her shoulders dropping under the weight of relief, of exhaustion, of everything she'd refused to feel until this moment. The boy stirred faintly, lifting his head. Is he okay? Maya brushed his hair back gently, her voice soft. He's alive. That's enough for tonight. The boy nodded, curling back against her. For the first time, his breathing didn't shake. Ramirez finally stopped packing, his hands braced against the wall, his eyes squeezed shut. For once, he didn't try to mask the tremor in his breath. Maya looked down at her blood-stained hands. The weight of every choice pressed into her bones. She thought of the tower, of the village in flames, of the silence that had followed each shot. She thought of Colin's hand in hers, refusing to let go. She thought of the boy, alive because she hadn't faltered. And she realized her silence wasn't weakness. It wasn't surrender. It was the storm held inside, steadying her when the world broke apart. Outside, the dawn broke. The first light touched the horizon, painting the sky in fragile gold. Maya stood, lifting the boy gently into her arms. She looked once through the window, at the fire fatting into smoke far beyond, at the mountains that still carried echoes of gunfire. Then she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Storms don't end when the sky clears. They live on, inside those who carry them. And with that, she walked toward the recovery ward, silent, unshaken, her steps louder than thunder.